Today we're going to go through the steps in order to replace the fuel pump on this 1999 Chrysler Sebring. First, we'll bleed the pressure off the system using our relief valve on our pressure gauge. Be sure and capture this fuel in a safe container. Because of the location of the battery, we will be disconnecting it at this location. Now we will raise the vehicle in order to gain access to the fuel tank. Before we begin to lower the fuel tank, we will disconnect the fuel filler hose from the filler tube and also disconnect the vent hose from the vent tube. We can now remove the tank straps and lower the tank in order to gain access to the fuel line fittings and also electrical connection. Now we'll disconnect the main fuel line. Note that there may be some residual pressure at this point. Be sure and capture any fuel in a safe container. Now we need to disconnect the electrical connection for the fuel pump and then disconnect the emissions line. It's easier to work with a lighter tank, so always be sure that your fuel level is as low as possible. In order to keep debris from getting into the tank, we need to clean it with mild detergent and water. Now that we've cleaned the outside of the tank, we need to remove the fuel lines, which are a pinch type connector again. We will need to remove the retainer in order to reuse it on the new module. In order to remove this fuel pump from the fuel tank requires a special tool. These tools are available at the local auto parts store. Again, we turn it counterclockwise in order to remove it. Now that we've got the locking ring removed, we'll remove the pump module. This is a plastic module type assembly, and the lower portion of this will have fuel in it. We need to be sure and safely capture that. As we can see, there is some contaminants built up on the strainer. Even if your fuel pump strainer does not show these signs, we always recommend cleaning the inside of the tank. Now that we've thoroughly cleaned the inside of the tank, we're ready to install the new Airtex fuel pump module. You'll note that the tank seal is included along with any other components needed. Slide it into the tank, noting the arm not to bend it or disform it. Note the locating tabs on the bottom of the flange, also the mating surface on the top of the tank. It's also a spring-loaded module assembly. We'll have to slightly compress that spring in order to install the unit. With the new Airtex fuel pump module installed into the tank, now we'll install our lock ring. We'll take our spanner wrench and turn the lock ring clockwise to tighten. In some applications, you'll have to remove the dummy plug from the old fuel pump module assembly and install it onto the new module harness. Now we can install the new fuel filter. With this type of fuel line, there are two different installation methods. Both work, it's just your preference. You can either install the clip into the line itself and then snap it into place, or we can install the clip onto the fitting and then snap the line fitting into place. You will want to remove the old fuel line retainer clip and install it into the fuel line. Now we're ready to reinstall the tank into the vehicle. Reinstall the emissions tube and the fuel line going to the engine. Connect the electrical connector. We install the tank straps. Tighten the hose clamp on the filler hose. Reinstall negative battery cable. Recycle the key 2 to 3 times. Let the fuel pump charge the system and we'll start the vehicle. After starting the vehicle, look at the fuel pressure gauge and make sure that it is within vehicle specifications. To remove the gauge, we'll shut the engine off and bleed the pressure from the system using the pressure relief on the gauge, making sure to capture any fuel in a safe container.